All right, everyone, welcome back to Fermat Fridays. Today's guest, I've got Grace joining me, and I'm super excited because Grace is a wealth of knowledge about pretty much everything to do with Fermat and funnels. So excited to have her join. Grace, what I was hoping we could jam on today is we've been getting a lot of people coming through talking about kind of like business as usual ads, but I've started to kind of think about things as like business as usual funnels as well. There's kind of like these like core four places where people are tending to point their ad traffic to. And I want to speak to some of those today and kind of get your take on some of the pros, cons, and how we can kind of use Fermat to help eliminate some of the cons of some of those funnels. So those core four for those listening, at least for me, Grace, feel free to add in any ones I'm missing. Is we got the homepage, we've got the catalog page, we've got a PDP, and then custom landing pages. Maybe I have to
That's
adjust
right.
my core four if you have another one. Might have to make it like the Fantastic Five or something.
I would say that's probably spot on.
Cool. Which of those should we start with?
Mm, I think the most often is a collection page, is where people are sending. It depends on the category, right? And which industry you're in. But I would say most often across all categories is going to be a collection page.
And why do you think that most brands choose to send like, or not, we're not saying all, but maybe the majority of their ads to a collection page?
Yeah, collection page is like, I think of it as like a shortcut to a landing page almost because you can be really specific of what in your catalog you're going to feature there. And so I think for brands, it's really easy for them to spin up a collection page on their existing homepage and then be really specific about what is merchandised.
I I love that it is a like hack or like quick landing page because you're right, it is easy to spin up a catalog page, and like I'm always thinking about it of like, oh, I can send someone to my best sellers, or I can send someone to like my shirts or like a particular type of supplement. But what you were saying there, I can actually just spin up a collection for like a specific thing or group of products that I want to merchandise and then direct an ad to that. So it
Right.
kind of
Right.
is a bit of a landing page hack.
Right. Yeah, and I do see like a couple of my menswear brands, they have the same collection page, but they'll call it something different depending on what they're trying to get at. So sometimes it's called the best sellers, sometimes it's called the sale page, even though it's not at all anything merchandised differently than a bestseller page. And so it really depends on what they're trying to get at. Sometimes we just had Father's Day, so it was like a Father's Day sale page, but really at its core, it was their bestsellers collection page.
And when you're seeing brands do this, so I would agree. I see this kind of like the most often as we're interfacing with our brands, but even just as a shopper out there, like I feel like
Mhm.
most times when I click on a Facebook or Instagram ad, I'm on a collection page. So pros, pretty easy to spin up, also allows you to have some like control over the merchandising versus dropping on like a homepage. What do you think some of the cons are for people who are taking this approach?
Yeah, I would say the people that are customizing the collection page, depending on what they're trying to get at, is the most sophisticated way that people are doing it. Majority of people right now are just doing it on either a bestsellers, an intro starter pack, something like that. And depending on what the ad creative is, it could be a really disruptive experience. So, like, we might have really great ads. We know a bunch of great media buyers out there that are creating and sending a bunch of great ads in Meta. But if they're not going to a great post click experience, it breaks the entire funnel and people will inevitably drop off really quickly. An example would be like you have like a super flashy, exciting video ad creative, and then you go to a bestsellers page and it doesn't have any of the products that were featured in the video. It doesn't have any of the value props that you're talking about in the video. Um, I see this happen so often as a consumer when I'm on Instagram clicking through ads. I'm like, this doesn't look anything like that ad creative I was just at. So for the brand, it's super easy, and they think that they're hacking the system by like creating a more customized category and collections page, but really from the consumer experience, you're still breaking it and it's not an awesome experience.
I think you're right. I had an example where I was shown I was looking for running socks. I get most of my ads are for running apparel. There was a running socks and it was like this really like crazy pattern. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I clicked on the ad, but then it dropped me on a collection page and the collection had like 30 or so products in it. Didn't see that one that was highlighted in the ad when I first landed. And I was like, yeah, peace out. I'm not
Right.
going to like go dig around to find this. So,
Right.
yeah, I think you're right with like people can get kind of sophisticated with it, but at the end of the day, unless it's a ad that is like really tailored to landing in said collection and you've been very intentional about the merchandising, it's going to be a pretty jarring experience. So
Right.
from this collection page, like using something like Fermat, using a Fermat funnel to have like this lander, like how can a brand level up from the collections? I also like that you pick collections because this is probably like the hardest one for us to kind of like build up around. So
Yeah.
starting in difficult mode.
Yeah. I have a couple of like specific examples in mind of I have one brand that I'm working with that's they're working with a new creative agency and they're making like these super high production videos that have a ton of color. They're really dynamic. They're really like really intriguing videos. And their collection page or their homepage and their branding is pretty bland, or I would say more neutral, not bland. But like they're using neutral colors, right? They're using like a gray, a brown, um, they're not using any bright colors on their homepage. And so traditionally the way that they're running their ads is they have this super exciting, engaging video, and then you click through to the bestsellers collection page and it's all bland, neutral colors, and the merchandising is there, but the experience, it feels like you're in two completely different brands, from a creative perspective, and just as a user, the experience looks so drastically different that you think that you're landing on the wrong page. And so for someone like that, we there's two options that we have done for with Vermont. One is creating one of our video landing pages. So we take that same video creative, and then when they click through on the shop now button, it's going to a video lander. And so that same video experience is taking you consistent through there. And then we have that video lander merchandise with very specific things that are shown in that video. The other thing that we can do is we can play around with the different elements of imagery, media, text, and colors so that we can try using more color in the landing page to make that more cohesive experience. So, for example, this brand, the video that I'm thinking of, it has like a man in a bright yellow shirt, and then it has another man in like a bright orange shirt. And so, how do we bring those visual elements through to the landing page so it creates a more consistent experience? So, like bringing that yellow shirt through or bringing the orange element through. Um, those are ways that we're creating visual consistency without a lot of lift on our side. And still, in all three cases, it's the same merchandising, it's the same products, it's the same price, it's the same offers. It's just creating some visual coherence there so that it feels really tight to the customer and it creates a much better buying journey for you.
I love that. Like keep it like nothing worse than having being like super disjointed. Like because I'm like there's the link to the experience that I'm going to land on. If I'm experiencing one thing, like even if the experience on the other side, like when you were saying like bland, neutral, like even if it's still good per se, but it's different, like my mind starts saying like, okay, like did I just get tricked? Like
Right.
did they put like a ton of effort into this and I'm like on some like I don't know, low quality, whatever type of product because like the experience isn't matching up. Now, for some of the people who are listening are probably saying like, okay, well, like, couldn't I just do that with a custom landing page? And I'm jumping a bit here to a different
Yeah.
type of landing experience, but felt like a natural segue. It's like, couldn't I do the same thing with just a landing page builder and accomplish keeping that like cohesive experience?
Yeah. There's you could. You could do it with a typical landing page builder. There's a couple reasons why it's better with Vermont or easier.
Or
Multiple
both?
reasons. Yeah, or both. I think The first one is that it's easier, right? With Fermat, we can create a new landing page for that specific ad in 5 minutes. We don't even know if that ad creative is gonna resonate, and so for a brand like this one to go and generate, a new landing page with the landing page builder out there, it would take them like a 2-week turnaround at least, and by that point, the ad creative may be fatigued, it may be not working, they're very quickly iterating on their ad creative. And so they don't have that time to build like an entirely net new landing page from scratch. With Fermat, we can easily just clone an existing page that we have for them and switch out some of those really small elements to make it look more visually cohesive. I think the other piece there is we can also play around with the PDPs. And so, for example, let's take this yellow shirt that was in the video ad creative. There's this yellow shirt that's featured, it's really bright, really colorful. On Vermont, we could do a test or we could just make it the normal that the PDP features that yellow color first. It's a yellow t-shirt that they're trying to sell. Maybe they have multiple yellow or multiple shirts in multiple colors. We could make the yellow color of that shirt swatch the first one that someone would see when they land without having to do anything in Shopify or without having to change anything on the back end. With a traditional landing page builder, you'd have to probably make a specific product within Shopify and then add that to the landing page, or you'd have to reconfigure your PDPs so that that image shows first. There's a lot of different ways you could do it, but they're all going to be super complicated. And with Fermat, we can really easily just default to that color swatch as the default option.
Yeah, I love that. If I had to summarize what you're saying there, it's time consuming and shallow, right? Like if I
Right.
have to go build a custom landing page every single time, I mean, a lot of brands we talk to is like, well, if I want to go do that, it's now part of the site and I have to go through this person, and this person for
Right.
like creative approvals and builds. And even if it is in like a simple builder, there's just so many steps that you need to kind of like go through because it's going to be sitting inside of the website, where
Right.
something like Fermat is kind of like a satellite to your actual site, where it's kind of sitting separate and tends to give a little bit more freedom and flexibility to that person who's responsible for the ads, kind of owning their outcome all the way through. And second, the shallow component of this is a lot of times when you're building a landing page is just pulling product descriptions, product images from your CMS, which would be Shopify. So you wouldn't
Right.
have that flexibility to change up what those are looking like. And an example that I saw recently that's like really stuck with me is there was an ad that was talking about kind of like building a routine. It was a supplements product,
Yeah.
building a routine. The lander was an advertorial kind of like hitting on all the benefits of building that routine. And then when I click into the PDP has a lot of like carousel images that are also speaking to building a routine. What does this look like at like this point, this point, this point? Where if that same brand was to build with like a custom landing page and just pull the PDPs in, it'd just be a bunch of product shots. It'd be like the exact same as someone landing on the site. But in this experience where I know I'm targeting routine building, I can do that. I can highlight a subscription. I have like more flexibility to build that cohesive experience past the landing page into the PDPs and with Vermont even into the cart level.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think the big piece of this is that a lot of it is experimental, right? We're experimenting with ad creative, we're experimenting with merchandising, we're experimenting with upsells. And we don't have I say we as the brands. The brands don't have time that's like 2 weeks or however long that it's going to take to turn around some of these outcomes. Like we need them yesterday. We need them, really quickly because that's how fast the market and the consumer is moving, and that's how the brands that are on the forefront are continuing to push the forefront, is like they're just iterating so quickly. And with a traditional landing page you can't turn things out that quickly.
Yeah. The I mean it like I don't think there's a faster moving industry than like direct to consumer advertising. Like what
Right.
worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today. And I think you're right. Like just being as agile as possible, not only in the build, but also in like adapting winning outcomes, right? Like, hey, we were using this, and because we spun this up, it's winning. Okay, like let's propagate that into like some of these other experiences that we're doing. So like the experimental nature of what we're doing and the ability for us to like propagate and apply learnings, I think is something that you're just not going to get going back to like sending to a custom landing page. It's slow, it's shallow.
Right.
All right. We started with the two meaty ones. So the other two we were talking about in that core four was the homepage and the PDP. So for homepage, I think based on everything Grace and I have been saying so far, you can probably figure out why we don't think the homepage is a great one. It's going to be the most jarring from ad to dropping someone on the homepage. You're kind of just letting people wander. There's no kind of guardrails on the experience that you want to create and like the expectations that you want to manage. So I think we can probably skip homepage. But
Right.
let's talk PDPs for a second, because this actually is a very common one as well, especially ad creative dependent, right? Like if I'm highlighting a specific product, why shouldn't I just drop it on a PDP?
Yeah. I think the PDP, from my point of view, is going to be your best bet if you're not using Fermat or a custom landing page. Um, I think a PDP is a great option, but the reason why you would want to be a little bit more sophisticated is that the PDP is just one product and you want to give people optionality. You want them to shop around, but you want to do it in a way that's super easy, that's mobile optimized, and they can do at a glance. So the PDP is inherently a part of your homepage or part of your website. And therefore, when you're trying to shop around, it's going to be your entire catalog. If I want to see, a little bit more about the brand, I'm going to have to like search on multiple parts of the website to get all of that information. I think the beauty of Fermat is that you can get that at a glance. We can really quickly have the super important PDP information that you need, but then we'll also have the brand information, or we'll also have, the other products that are complementary, and we make it as frictionless as possible, where a PDP to website is just a lot more friction than the consumer needs.
Yeah, I think like if you, same thing with PDP, it's kind of similar to a homepage where I think a lot of people, the thought is, well, if I drop them here, they'll be able to shop, they'll be able to explore and kind of like choose their own adventure. I think the problem is like a lot of times when people are clicking on ads, they're not kind of in this like, oh, let me go browse, let me go explore for the next like 15 minutes to find that. So I think that's a bit of a misconception. I also think that a very a PDP is a great option, and with Vermont, like you're able to build landing pages and PDPs to like go specific to that ad. So I think a lot of time, like we say it a lot here, like the website has to be average. So like the PDP is generally trying to speak to like six different use cases and six different value props and like a bunch of different audiences. Where if you were to put together ad creative that is specific to an individual product and you went like really deep on one of the value props, with something like Fermat, you'd be able to edit and build that landing page experience and the PDP to like highlight those specifically. And like one example that I think comes to mind is like curating the reviews to show reviews that are talking specifically to that. So it's like
Yeah.
a supplement that has all these benefits, but one of them is like, I don't know, hair shininess. It's like, okay, pull all the reviews out that are talking about like the shininess of hair so that any
Right.
person who lands on this is like really consuming the benefit of the intention that drove them to that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing, similarly, is that we have the ability to do like these virtual products. And so if you wanted to try two different versions of a PDP in the same exact experience, we could do that as well. Where that again would require you, if you were going to use a different type of tool, it would require you to do like create a duplicate of the product, which may cause issues in fulfillment or something down the line, that you don't want to deal with. Where we're just trying to, change messaging. Let's highlight different benefits of this one product and see how that resonates with the users.
I love that. So as we've been talking about these different kind of like business as usual entry points from an ad, any do you think there's any that we missed, or did we get the most common ones?
Yeah, I think that's it. Fermat is the last missing piece of that puzzle, I think.
Right. The fifth one is send to a Fermat funnel.
That's
Ignore all
right.
the other ones and just send it here. Absolutely
Right.
shameless plug. Um, so Grace, you get to work with a ton of brands. You're building inside of these Fermat funnels all the time. Any kind of like pro tips for listeners? Like we kind of just gave some of the basics of this, but like what's something that something you find yourself kind of recommending time and time again, or seeing brands you work with kind of get a lot of value out of?
Yeah. I think at the most basic level, a lot of times I'm working with brands that are so ingrained in their product and they're living and breathing these products every single day, whether it's, t-shirts or whether it's supplements or, beauty products. They are so intimately entwined with the product that it's super helpful to take a step back and take the lens of a consumer that's never met your product before. Do you have all of your bases covered on the landing page, on your PDPs, in your ad creative? What is the product? Why should I use it? Just like really basic questions around it that I think a lot of times as marketers and as advertisers, we might start to forget when we're in the product every single day. So that's my number one tip is to like always take a step back and think like, am I portraying what this product actually is? Like I say it's let's take like a beauty product, for example, a contour stick. Like, what is a contour stick? It is like a a creamy consistency. It is a product that you use to make your cheekbones bigger. I don't know, whatever it is. Take a step back and really make like sure that you're talking about what the product is and why people should use it in the first place.
I think like you said, hey, this is a basic tip. I think that's actually like a really strong tip too, especially when someone's coming in through ad creative, right? Like there's missing context that someone shopping on the site might have gotten, right? Like if I land on the site and
Right.
I explore the homepage and then I navigate to, I don't know, face makeup and I can see like that particular product as it relates to everything else in the catalog. These are all things that like I'm consuming and understanding that when I'm being driven through an ad to like a specific product, like I'm actually missing all of that context. So like it's super, super important.
Right. Absolutely.
So pro tips, any kind of like surprises? Is there anything that I don't know? Maybe there is no surprises. Like you've been at this for a long time. Maybe nothing surprises you anymore. But
No, I think, there's lots of surprises. There's certain things to me that I think are like table stakes that any like marketer or anyone in the industry would be thinking of. And sometimes people just forget them. So like talking about Father's Day, if I had a menswear brand just say like, "Hey, just want to make sure you guys are running a Father's Day sale." There was one of them that was like, "Oh my gosh, we totally forgot." Like, how could we forget that? Because for them, it's men that are generally buying their product, but that could also be something that women are going to buy for their husbands for Father's Day, or, daughters are going to buy for their dads for Father's Day, something like that. And so just reminding people of like the basics, I think is something that's super super helpful. But then also like being all really creative on top of that. So like, okay, we know that for Mother's Day, like hot mom summer was like a phrase that was doing really well. How do we apply that to dads? Like dads want to be hot too. So like let's do hot dad summer and see how that resonates, right? Let's be like a little funny and creative and figure out what could stand out a little bit, but still like being at the basic level, making sure you're hitting like all your major cultural milestones, your holidays, all of those types of things.
you hit on something there that I think is like an interesting thing for us to talk about, right? Like, hey, hot mom summer's been a thing. Like, what if we tried hot dad summer? Being able to build that as a Fermat experience instead of like putting it to the site is like, okay, I can try ads. I can like go and see how this is working. And like, I can kind of do it in a vacuum where maybe it doesn't resonate with like my normal buyers. But hey, if I'm targeting Father's Day purchases, it might be the mom, it might be the significant other, it might be someone else that's like buying for this. So I can curate this experience. And if it blows up, kind of no harm, no foul, right? Because it's not
Right.
on my site. There's no brand degradation. There's like no kind of people being like, whoa, what were they thinking? It's kind of like isolated.
Right. Exactly. It's such an isolated experience, and that's why I'm constantly pushing my brands to try things that are maybe a little bit outside their comfort zone because it's so isolated. It's one experience that's coming from one ad, right? And like at the end of the day, let's say even an ad that had like quite a bit of traffic in 1 week, that's only like 1,000 people that actually landed on that landing page or 2,000 people, however many it is in the great scheme of things, like that's not that many people. And you're also getting such a valuable data point that like that doesn't resonate. And knowing that it doesn't resonate is also a really strong data point that you can take, in future learnings and even product development.
We had Ryan on the show a few weeks ago, and one of his big things was like, make sure you always test things that were bad ideas like a month ago or like 2 months ago, because all of a sudden the bad idea could be a good idea again. And this is
Right.
kind of giving me the same vibes. It's like
Right.
try things, like learn. It's important to know what's working, but it's also important to just like validate something doesn't work. Because I feel like there's a lot
Right.
of, I don't know, like we're victim of this too at Fermat. It's like we think something is the way it is because that's how it was 2 months ago, but like that doesn't necessarily
Right.
mean it's the same today.
Exactly. 100%.
Is there, okay, so we talked about pro tips, surprises, anything like anything that kind of strikes you as, hey, most people when I start working with them, they think that, like, kind of playing off that, they think this is true, but generally speaking, like kind of across our brand portfolio, we don't actually see that being true. Like any kind of like conversion misconceptions or funnel misconceptions that you think a lot of people kind of hold when they come in?
Yeah, I think that the inherent knowledge of the brand is like one of those. So, as I was mentioning before, like just at the most basic level, understanding what the product does, I think a ton of these brands they live and breathe the brand, so they assume everyone has heard of them. They've assume everyone knows, what these different products are used for, but really they don't. And so just a basic brand and product education, I think, is something that gets overlooked so often. Um, I think another thing is like we, at least at Vermont, we live in a bubble of super metropolitan people. We're in major, US cities. We all kind of have like very similar work backgrounds, education levels, those types of things. But the consumers of these brands are across the spectrum of all different things, right? There are people, I live in San Francisco, California. There are people that are in Modesto, California that live a very different life than I do that are buying these same products. And so how do we make sure that we're speaking to like that breadth of people as well? And finding those new niche audiences is something that people, I think, at least in the DTC industry, sometimes get like too narrow focused on like we are in DTC, we all start to think the same, like these are our users, our consumers, but really it can be such a much more broad spectrum of people.
I think that is a super valuable point. Like, not it's one, not to get stuck in that, but two, when you start breaking away from that, you can actually find like net new revenue streams for your business, right?
Right.
It's like all of my ads are targeting this type of person, but like, what if I changed it up? What if I took like all these things that are like more urban in their appearance and like started to put like more of a rural appearance to it? Like, would I attract a new audience? Again, with something like Fermat, you can kind of build that landing page, the PDP, and like the offers that you're putting together to speak to that audience to unlock a new revenue stream. Where like if you were to just drop to like a PDP, maybe you put an ad together that feels a different way. But then I hit the landing page and I see these product descriptions and like the models that are being used, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, okay, cool. You spoke to me at the ad level, but now that I'm here, this doesn't really feel like me anymore. Peace.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I had one of these like kind of experiences just last week with one of my brands. Shout out Gladly Family Stroller Wagons. They are in Massachusetts. It was kind of the opposite. They are in a smaller town in Massachusetts. They're in a lot of farmland, and they build these stroller wagons for kids and parents. You can put your kids in it. They don't have to have a stroller, and you can roll them around in this wagon, but it still has like harnesses and it's safe for them to use. And their big demographic right now is like beach and camping and going to farms, because that's in their environment what a lot of people are using them for. They're using these stroller wagons to go to like pick apples at the farm or go to the beach and carry all their beach stuff. Well, I'm in San Francisco and I see people all the time that have two strollers and a wagon and a dog. And I was telling them, I'm like, you need to be marketing these more to like big city people, because this is such a genius thing where I can consolidate a bunch of my gear into one. And I don't have to like worry about the safety of my children in, an unsafe type of wagon, or like some kind of hacky thing that people are doing today. And so I had like a kind of that reverse experience with this brand, but just from that, they were like, that's, we never thought of that, because they're not living in San Francisco. So just, I think also having these types of conversations helps people generate those ideas, right? And like talking with you, Alex, you're in Canada, talking about like how a Canadian audience is different than an American audience, and always, bouncing ideas, I think is helpful.
Yeah, and like in that the wagon example, like new revenue stream unlocked. And I think like it takes you have to think about it a certain way, but I also think that people like tech can really influence how you think about something. So like when you think something's not possible, you tend to just kind of like erase it from your mind. And like anytime something comes up, like, well, I just can't do that. Right. And I think like that's one of the most exciting things when we're having these types of conversations with brands and we make them realize like, hey, you can do that. Like you're not at the mercy of trying to like strap this onto the site and like do all this work. Like we can spin that up and like try it today. Like
Right.
let's go try it. And like seeing people's faces light up with that, because like it was just assumed that, I don't know, messing around deeper in the funnel than a landing page was just not something I could do. And like us showing that is possible, it changes everything. Like it changes how you think.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Grace, before I let you go, I have one more question for you, which is, why do brands love our account managers so much? Every single time I talk to a brand or have a brand on the show, they're just raving about you guys. Why?
Why not, Alex? What's not to love? Uh, no, I think for myself and for everyone on the team, we're constantly learning and constantly trying to become subject matter experts, but never feeling like we are a subject matter expert. So constantly trying to level up and learn more, and the learning is never done, right? But I think that that's a really great way that we can provide a bunch of insights to our customers, right? We're coming to them with ideas all the time, and but we're never too opinionated on them. We have many opinions loosely held, is the phrase, I think. So that's kind of, I think, maybe part of it. And we're also just fun and nice, good people.
There's amazing people, all of you. So yeah,
Yeah.
makes makes a ton of sense. Grace, thanks for joining and dropping all this knowledge. Is there anywhere, if people want to kind of keep tabs on you, can they follow anywhere? Twitter, LinkedIn, carrier pigeons?
Yeah, Grace Stern on LinkedIn. Like and follow.
Love it. And while you're at it, make sure you like and follow this podcast, Fermat Fridays. And we were talking a lot about funnels in this episode. So I'll also link, we put together an insane guide kind of showing a bunch of different funnel approaches in e-commerce. So I'll drop that for you all to grab as well.